Welcome back to the Soul Collective. I am so grateful to connect with you today.
Thank you, Emily. Really good to be here with you. I love coming on your show, so appreciate it.
We have so much to talk about and to explore today. I know there's been a lot of events, a lot of unfoldings that are really related to the work that you've been doing for many years of your life. And so I'm so excited to explore that and just see where the conversation takes us today.
Me too. Yeah, lots of stuff is going on in the world right now, so it's just like it's really exciting. I mean, it's been exciting times for a long time, but right now there's some huge things happening that make me feel that we're in store for a complete shift, a paradigm shift, very, very rapidly.
It must be wild to have been doing this work for so long and seeing it, kind of bubbling even to like mainstream, media and just seeing kind of the shift and the, embracing of this knowledge. How has that felt like for you?
Yeah, it's when the first like validation came, because what we're speaking about for everybody tuning in, we're specifically speaking about like the conspiracies of UFOs, if you will, and or it goes even deeper than that, other conspiracies too. But technologies out there, there's reverse engineering of technologies, UFOs exist, shadowy parts of the governments know about it, all those elements. 2016, 2017, there was a huge validation that occurred when ex CIA, NSA, and other three-letter agency officials came out and started talking about this technology that they're witnessing. So what happened in that moment was huge. Like I remember it was Tom DeLonge's stream, right? And first of all, I got to put a disclaimer: by talking about these people and what they do, is no way am I giving them credit for the fact that they are disclosure or they are doing something that is for the betterment of humanity. What I'm saying is that it was a validation on a lot of stuff that we're talking about. We're not crazy. These things do exist. They've been witnessing them for a while. So that was a really huge moment where I know like many of the people I work with, we had conversations, phone calls. We went straight to doing YouTube events immediately, speaking about everything they're talking about. And the conversation was, oh my God, disclosure is happening. Is this disclosure? Right. So that continued occurring, ever since then. It was a normalization of this subject. But then what just happened in the last 3, 4 weeks is bigger than even that. So I would say like this is way more off of validation than anything else, because before it's just like they exist, they're out there. This is going into the programs that we suggested existed, but we were told that we were crazy to even think that they did.
Okay, I love it. I love this setup cliffhanger. Let's go back to the past, 3 or 4 weeks. But first, I want to kind of go back to the beginning and catch listeners up. You've been a guest on the Soul Collective podcast before. We, talked a little bit about ancient history and your journey. And I'd love for you to just kind of catch us up with how you even began this research in the first place.
Yeah. So how it began was in 2001 was really the beginning of me looking into all this. And not to go too deep into the past before that, but I was raised Hindu. I would never really had any firm beliefs. I was open to many different traditions. 2001, I started having a question, what is the root of all religion? Because I saw so many similarities in different cultures and civilizations. And I was wondering why don't we talk about the similarities? Why do we talk about the differences? One thing that really stood out was that there was a lot of monotheistic religions that had same or similar stories to polytheistic religions. But I was always told from the mainstream monotheistic world that they're like almost two completely separate things, they're apples and oranges. There is no connection to it. So I started seeing that maybe the monotheistic cultures was an evolution of polytheism, and it was actually just a rebranding of that. So as I did that, or is there a root story of all of humanity? Is there a scripture that we all pulled from? And I found the Sumerian scriptures, the Sumerian tablets of creation. And after going into different researchers, info, Jordan Maxwell, William Henry, Zachariah Sitchin, Daniken, and a few others, after looking at their info and then also reading some of these parts myself, because back in 2001, it wasn't like a glossary where you could just search a keyword. it was just like one website with like just text of the Sumerian scriptures. You know what I mean? So you like have to read it. And so that made me start realizing that, oh my God, a lot of these ancient scriptures in the world and all these religions that currently exist and ones that maybe have faded away, a lot of them seem to have pulled the information from here and have the exact same stories or similar stories or the same deities but with different names. And in those scriptures, it spoke about how, like for example, the Old Testament is almost verbatim from these scriptures, and it spoke about these beings, and it even says a really famous line in the Old Testament: "We were created in His image and His likeness." Right? That was one of the smoking guns for me. But it didn't say we were created in His image and His likeness. The original text said we were created in their image and in their likeness. And the original text was actually, just to kind of go deeper into what I thought then, I want to realize now, was actually feminine. We're created in the goddess's image and the goddess's likeness, right? And now looking at it in the future, it's actually androgynous. It's not even male or female. It's a term that could be utilized for both, right? So this just blew my mind. I was like, okay, patriarchy, masculine god, male god, coming from this text, talking about multiple gods. But it also talked about where these gods came from, and it's told by the planet. It had a map of our solar system and the planet they're from. So I was like, okay, wait a second. Either all religion is complete BS because it comes from a sci-fi story about aliens, right? That the ancients wrote, or maybe these gods were actually beings from other realities, dimensions, and planets. And that's when I started going into all this information. There was a spiritual component to it because it was directly connected to consciousness of these beings, which connected me to vibration of frequency that led me into doing the spiritual work that I'm in now.
I love that so much. And I just want to point out like your brilliant mind and the dedication. I feel like it's, just such an embodiment. I think you have like a lot of Scorpio placements in your chart, but like that penetrating ability to go like deep into the heart of things and figure it out, like figure out these mysteries. It's like you're so well equipped to be doing this work.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I am Scorpio, and I do go. I feel like I embody it more that now I know the truths about being that. I like to bring truth out to the surface.
Yeah. Neil, I don't know if you know this about me, but I have begun doing galactic astrology readings, and I interlay that with different aspects of looking at one's divine blueprint through
Yeah.
like evolutionary astrology, human design, gene keys, things like this. But the galactic astrology gives just this level of understanding, of depth, of like wow, like understanding my journey in such a multi-dimensional way, of like kind of like this light bulb of things like really making sense in such a deep way. And it's such a gift because it broadens the horizon of what's possible, like our soul essence. Like, and I feel like reincarnation does this in a way too. It's like, that understanding that there's more to this, planetary existence. And so I feel like that is so much of what you're bringing through, is just to broaden our awareness.
Exactly, because we live within this limited frequency range, and we feel that that's all that there is. But we can prove now with science that frequency ranges beyond what we perceive exist. So my, I guess, Scorpio mind and just my curiosity makes me wonder, well, what exists within those ranges that we can't perceive but we know exist, right? And that's when you get into the paranormal and extraterrestrials and all that.
Yeah. And we're kind of like teasing this disclosure I want to get into. But I want to kind of like hear the journey and the evolution of this. Like as you've grown Portal to Ascension, there has been such an interest, I would say, just, of like really wanting to know this information and this knowledge. Like what have you seen along the journey of like this remembrance, or perhaps like giving people some of this information and making it so accessible?
So what have I seen? Um, what have I seen that really is what, like a paradigm shifting kind of thing? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and how people are resonating, how they're connecting, like what information really is landing, and how is it helping people in their day-to-day
Yeah.
lives?
Right. So ultimately, the I do a survey every single year to my list, and I kind of tune in with everybody to see what they're feeling, what they're into, right? And I shared it with you, I believe, just recently on the meeting we had, and there was a lot of people that were into understanding our ancient history, for quite a few years. And the other component that I feel a lot of people, because our community is very diverse, they're into all types of topics, um, but even the ones that are into spiritual topics and other ones seem to have a common curiosity about extraterrestrial life, right? Are we alone in the universe? Is a really huge one. To more of a energy healing, self empowerment kind of frequency, which I'm really appreciating because I've been doing these events for so long, and I've attempted to do self empowerment type events, spiritual awakening events, and they don't do as good as the drama filled one, if you will. The ETs, where they come from, who are we, ancient history, what happened? It was hidden. Those things are sensational, but sensational in a way that those sensational experiences are real, right? We were lied to. It was hidden. Those kind of things make people click through, make people watch the videos. People love that drama, you know what I'm saying? And knowing and exposing hidden truths. And I'm into exposing hidden truths. So what I'm seeing now is that there's a shift into more of the healing work from having to know these facts. And even with the disclosure, another teaser for that is that a lot of the comments that are happening is a distrust of it coming out. And what does it mean for us now? Because you're still corrupting the world, still these politicians are doing things that are not for the betterment of humanity. So the question is around this whole thing of distrust because these individuals have created a reality that is disempowering, right? So that's the first level. So the second level is taking ownership of that and realizing that even if that external reality is disempowering us, how do we create some sort of harmony within us so that we empower ourselves, whether the external reality is chaotic or not? So to circle back to the question, what I've seen like a lot, people have been all over the place with it, right? So there is no like what has been happening the whole time. Like an example would be 10 years ago, so many UFO disclosure researchers, ufologists, spiritual people were like shaking the government down, disclose, 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 right? Now disclosure is happening and they're just like, I don't believe you. You know what I'm saying? So people are just, yeah.
Doesn't the government is it accurate that the government has like a whole division that's dedicated to UFO research?
Yeah, and that's not even hidden information anymore, right? And some of that was not hidden from the beginning, right? So now we'll go into the history a little bit. So, and I did a presentation that I really enjoyed putting together called From UFOs to UAPs on my YouTube channel. And it's like an hour and a half of the history from 1890 to now, 1890 to now. So the first incident, and let me write it down here. I'm writing notes so that I don't forget to circle back to things. So let's go back to 1890. Should I do the timeline a little bit? A little quick timeline thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would love to hear the timeline. I have a quick question for you. Um, this might seem like an obvious question, but why do you think this information has been hidden? What's the reason for that?
Yeah, so we'll start with the end because that's the end thing right there. Well, the reason why it's been hidden, well, first, like a decade ago, um, the UFO subject is the most important subject in the world. No wonder why it's the most corrupted, manipulated, and why there's the most disinformation agents planted into these conferences, right? There's a lot of people there at these conferences speaking about their secret space program experiences, other things, right? That maybe have some sort of truth, but a lot of disinfo to derail people. Okay, the reason why, like, and just to give you more of a backing, I posted something on my Instagram about this like a week ago, and somebody said, "What does this have to do with prosecuting the people that were responsible for the last few years of what happened during quarantine?" Right, and so my answer is this topic connects to all elements and fields because, first of all, what are they using to get here? Well, I guarantee you it's not petrol. Okay. What kind of energy source are they using? Well, it's not electricity or anything that's non-sustainable, right? Where do they come from? And what information do they know about the universe? One out of the million questions that's going to make religion have to confront their shadow. Okay. And What do they use for exchange and money? Are they living in a capitalistic reality? Are we connected to them through ancestry? Are we aliens? Did they seed us? Everything I just said right here has enough evidence to say yes to every one of them. Not only have the government's whistleblown it, but we have scientific evidence to suggest this as well. All these questions will completely change the power structure on this planet and make all these institutions that are controlling us, like let's say the major ones, the pharmaceutical companies, the petrol and gas companies, the religious organizations, three of a few of the main society controlling mechanisms completely crumble. So if they don't have power anymore, then what does it mean for the rest of humanity, right? So that's one element. And then there are those people that are kind of like, I wish I could find a better word than useful idiots. I don't know a better term because that's like the term I was given. But just parroting things out without the deep knowing. They're just the parrots of this information. And they know about this stuff and they just think that look at humans, man, they're so ignorant and they're just so about the TikTok reality that they're not ready for the truth, they can't handle it. Okay. So a combination of all these, and there's no one agenda because there's so many compartmentalizations within these programs. And there's people that know the truth, there's people that know about the ETs, there's people that are the ETs, to people that just know that this program exists. And they all speculate their own thing on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to back up for a moment because I feel like there's, people at perhaps different levels of awareness with this information. We've actually never done an episode on ETs or UFOs on the Soul Collective, so I'm so honored and grateful that you're bringing this information through, and you're such, a vast knowledge of information. And so, I want to get to the heart of this, which I feel like you are, which is like the essence of the benefits, because I feel like there's movies out there's that really portray like ETs in like maybe a scary way, or and so there, this idea that there's so much more, there's so much more, and really like how that connects with how we can raise consciousness here.
Mm-hmm. So the question is, how does this whole thing have to do with our consciousness, right? So, when I get that question, I normally refer to this article that I wrote. I wrote an article for a magazine like 6 years ago, and it says, what does UFOs have to do with meditation? Okay. And it was a big article, but the first title was, it's a frequency game. Okay. Perceive the UFOs are everywhere. Why do they phase in and out of the reality? And we're having all types of anomalous occurrences. And how do they go faster than the speed of light? And how do they break the laws of physics? Is because they're tapping into the quantum world. Well, what's the quantum world? Now we're talking about the science of consciousness. The quantum world are the subatomic particles that we're all made out of. We used to think this world was Newtonian, meaning that everything is, the atom is the smallest particle and it's a particle. But then we realized the atom is made out of subatomic particles, and the subatomic particles are vibrating in and out of reality and defying the laws of physics on the atomic level. Therefore, the subatomic particles that the atoms are made out of are going by two different forms of science that contradict each other. So it doesn't make sense that an atom could be made out of vibrating reality in and out of conscious and in and out of this reality. So now how this connects to consciousness is, we've heard the terms raise your vibration, shift your frequency, moving to a higher vibration, going to the fifth dimension. All of those are relation to consciousness. Those are all metaphysical terms that relate to the actual vibratory frequency that we all have. Everything vibrates, but we live within a certain specific bandwidth of frequency. Just like you can smell, hear, and see certain frequency ranges only. Case in point, dog hears a whistle that you can't hear. It's a frequency the dog can hear, you can't hear. So that goes back to what we spoke about just a few minutes ago. That I was like, what's outside of those frequencies? Well, what's outside of these frequencies is a whole other world of realities that exist that these beings are within. And when you get to the higher, or I don't even like to use the word higher, because I don't even know if it's based on a construct of a numbering system, because that's a human construct where we gave things hierarchy within the Kali Yuga. Hierarchy is a Kali Yuga theme. So when we get into harmonious frequencies, right, other octaves, if you will, we start connecting closer to the original frequency, which is source. The let's just say hierarchy for just this example. Source, the highest consciousness frequency. Everything below it, fractalizations of the original source. The higher, more harmonious in frequency you are closer to the source, the more data you can retrieve from the original source. The further and further away, the more diluted you are and fragmented from the original source. Every dimension is a data set of information. Okay, we live in this 3D dimension where we have been susceptible to just the information available here. However, what's going on is there's an awakening on the planet, and as we're waking up, our consciousness first gets to that level, meditation, whatever types of exercises, sound healing, things like that. Then our bodies follow. So that's why the first contact is in your own mind. First contact is and ultimately, when we're all at that level of first contact within ourselves, which is truly only starts with a connection with the self, our bodies shift into that vibration as well. So how it connects to consciousness is that the beings that we want to interact with, right? The ones that are our ancestors, the ones that are benevolent here to help us out and all these things exist at fractalizations closer to the original source than we do. And the UFO question and us moving into a reality where we finally see all the ETs that are around us that we don't even see because we can't perceive has to do with us shifting our consciousness to match that.
Yeah. So just to summarize, like in very basic terms, so as we all raise our own consciousness, do that inner work, you'll see an increasing amount of people who are having these types of connections.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why like some people, including Bashar and others, have said that some people have requested to have interactions with UFOs and ETs, and the light ships would land and they would just run the other direction. And it's not that they wanted to run; their bodies couldn't handle the frequency that was being emanated from these beings.
Mm. So interesting. Why do you think some people, this is just a tangent thought, but why do you think some people are so able to like actually see, like whether it's spaceships or, and other people are not, who maybe even have been like cultivating or desiring to have that relationship?
I think there's so many answers to that. It's all individual based. Could be based on past lives. Could be based on karmic experiences. Could be based on the realm that you came from. You might just be a regular person at a regular job somewhere else, but you actually are a soul that came from this specific reality, specifically for the reason to wake others up, right? And then there are the star seeds that contractually agreed upon waking up at a certain time when they incarnated,
Hmm.
right? So I feel there's lots of answers to that.
This is so interesting. Do you have is your understanding that everybody originates from, a different place within the cosmos than planet Earth, or would you say that some beings originate from here?
I used to think that everybody did, right? And just recently, some people that I respect that I work with have said that there are Earth seeds that have just been here on the planet, and those beings, um, all they know is this reality and this density, and they've been here. However, is they've been here also during the evolutions of consciousness and devolution, right? So it's not like they're just stuck in density and darkness or something like that. They were a part of Atlantis, even they were part of Lemuria, even though many of the ETs were too. There were in civilizations on Earth that were communicating, connecting with ETs landing, right? So, but they were been on Earth for many, many years. So I'm still trying to quantify that whole experience because I feel like if energy is infinite and souls are infinite, haven't we been everything? So my belief is shifting a bit, but I don't have any answers to it.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I know that you do travels all around the world and you also, take people to different sacred sites. You have a trip coming up to Egypt. What's the significance, would you say, of Egypt and how so many of us feel such a strong, connection there?
Egypt, I don't even know where to begin. It's just like so much. So I'll tell you my story with it. So like, woke up. Obviously, Egypt is one of the first places that you start hearing about when you are into all this stuff, and then all of a sudden start hearing that Egypt is way older than we've been told, and evidence comes out. Graham Hancock releases evidence. Robert Schoch, main evidence for the Sphinx being like 10,000 years older through geological erosion studies, right? And we start realizing, wow, why have they been telling us that these things were built around 3000 BCE when it looks like they were being operated in use in like 13,000 BCE, which is the golden age, right at the middle, right at the end of the Younger Dryas period, when there was a cataclysm on Earth and probably an asteroid that was also connected to all the flood stories around the world and also the fall of Atlantis, right? There's too many connections there to ignore them. So it looks like Egypt could have been a colony that was actually being created as Atlantis was sinking, because Atlantis sank in 3 phases over a period of time. It wasn't just like, oh my God, we're gone, you know? A lot of people survived it and started going around to different areas in the world. And then the story of Thoth in Egypt is a story of a being that possibly left Atlantis and then brought technology and information to help build Egypt. And after Egypt was built, went around the world, including Teotihuacan, and helped build those structures there. And he was also Quetzalcoatl. So all these stories kind of connect to Egypt being maybe a colony of a greater civilization that existed before it. And there's no, like, it's just like how Homo erectus became Homo sapien overnight, like we just became a different being. It's the same thing as Egypt. There was just primitive cultures, and then all of a sudden there's this advanced culture in that area. Plus, that whole Sahara Desert back in those times was a lush green oasis. It was the ice age. The whole of North America, north of the Earth and the south of the Earth was covered in ice. The most lush, beautiful area to live was the equator around the whole area, including the Sahara Desert. It was all lush green oasis, so it was really inhabitable. You know, I did a presentation called "From Atlantis to Morocco" for my Atlantis conference last weekend, and it was about how Egypt and the colony probably spanned throughout the whole of the Sahara and the whole of North Africa from Egypt to Morocco, because one of the least excavated places in the world is the Sahara Desert. They don't, and one of the reasons why they don't excavate it is, oh, the last time it was lush green oasis, we were primitive. There's probably nothing to find. So one of the things that they tell us, right? So now, when it comes into why Egypt, a little more about it. About 3 years ago, I started researching a little bit more deep dives into Pythagoras' life. I created a whole 2 or 3 hour presentation on Pythagoras, and I started looking into the geometry of the structures in Egypt. And it seems like every single thing in Egypt, every rock, every positioning of every hieroglyph, the way the hieroglyphs are structured, the distance from one building to another, how many blocks and how many bricks there are in the pyramid, the circumference of the pyramid, the height of the pyramid, everything was done intentionally to give us a sign of something on Earth. It was almost like that Egypt was an artistic depiction of every element you need in order to rebuild society if there's a worldwide cataclysm. Okay. For example, all the bricks in one of the pyramid is the distance to a star, to calculate the distance to certain stars. The circumference of a pyramid divided by the height equals pi, right? The distance from one place to another place divided by like the height of one of them equals the circumference of the Earth. Okay, the tilt of Thoth's staff on the hieroglyphs, the way he's holding his staff, is the tilt of the Earth's axis, 23.5 degrees. And the tilt is the opposite way, symbolizing there was a pole shift, right? So, I mean, that's just the basic stuff right there. It goes so incredibly deep. The whole Solfeggio scale in 432 hertz scale, taken from ratios and from it, Pythagorean scale, the Pythagorean scale of music, right? Everything that we use for music based on the Pythagorean scale, 432 equals A, all from Egypt, right? And one last thing, the one that was the most mind-blowing is the Pythagorean triangle was originally called the Ptah-Horus triangle because it was Ptah and Horus, which is very interesting because Pythagoras, Ptah-Horus sound almost exactly the same. Did Pythagoras even exist, right? That's a whole other question. But you get all the pyramids in the Giza Plateau, right? 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. You put them together, right in between it, you have the Pythagorean triangle. The triangle of which we utilize the equations to build all of civilization, bridges, chairs, cars, everything. The equations on how to rebuild everything. So when I realized that like 3 years ago, my interest in Egypt just peaked up to a whole other level. I mean, we didn't even talk about the harmonics of the buildings and how they're structured with with scalar waves and octaves are bouncing off each structure. It's just genius.
That's incredible. And I
Yeah.
imagine just being there, I haven't been to Egypt, but I feel
I haven't been either. It's gonna be my first time going.
It's incredible. What have you found just traveling to different sacred sites around this planet?
So, okay, let me say one thing about Egypt. What I feel we're going to is we're of operating at full potential. So the masculine energy be one side, the feminine energy be one side. The structure, the planning, the alchemizer, the sacred container, the penetrative force of the masculine energy, with the creative, intuitive, receptive energy of the feminine energy. In Egypt, every structure seems like that balance was cultivated, because not only did I just what I just explained to you was the artistic representation through every structure of the scientific equations that create reality, right? All the geometry, all that stuff, all masculine, but they created structures, art, hieroglyphs, all this stuff using the feminine energy to depict how to masculinely create this reality. And then you see also the Eye of Horus, which is actually a depiction of the pineal gland and the pituitary gland in the third eye, all that stuff. So yeah, just to say, like, it's an incredible thing, and we're actually, just to throw this out there, we're fully booked for this year for Egypt, but we're going again November of next year for anybody who wants to come along for the ride. Okay,
Amazing.
so
And you have
now,
a few other retreat experiences coming up as well, if I'm not mistaken.
so we had two Egypt retreats, and we're going to do Greece next year, but we canceled Greece for to do it to 2025 because I just realized I have so many things going on, and my ambitious self tends to just keep packing things on to the point that I don't get to fully be present for certain things, you know? So I'm slowing down a little bit, but slowing down a little bit doesn't mean that we're slowing down.
Yeah, that's a relative word, right?
So we got lots happening.
Yeah,
So the conferences are picking up though. The Glastonbury one, the San Diego, that kind of stuff.
that's
So the sacred
exciting.
sites, I spent some time in Peru. I spent a lot of time in Yucatan in Mexico. I would say that Peru is probably the largest archaeological site in the world. I feel like the whole of Peru, from top to bottom, is just civilization after civilization, built on top of, built on top of. So much so that many of the sites are being found in people's backyards. Like, there's so many archaeological sites in Peru that the government doesn't have the resources or the willpower to section off all these areas in order to create them as zones where you can go and visit. We off-roaded for hours into the desert to find an ancient Paracas graveyard that was just there, not even like sectioned up anything. And all the gravestones have been broken, all the stuff had been robbed from it from grave robbers, thousands of years old. So even the Nazca lines, the government of Peru, they didn't care about it. It was just there. No one did anything to it. Not until a German lady named Mary something came there and convinced that the government, if they section and preserve something that they needed to, and they could make money from it. Not until then did they actually even change anything. So Peru is huge, and obviously that needs a whole other podcast, because that gets into the elongated skull beings, who went there, the DNA results of the connection to Mesopotamia, all that stuff. Yeah.
I was just thinking that we'll have to have you back and we'll explore, some of these places. I just feel like I can talk to you for hours, and I want to make sure that we get a chance to share with listeners this cliffhanger that we've been building to. Um, Tell us a little bit about some of the recent events that have been disclosed.
Okay, so I'll do the history just for people who aren't aware of it, but it'll be a quick one. Okay, so 1893-ish. So everything I'm saying now has been disclosed through Congress, through the governments, through the whistleblowers. Many of these things way before.
Who are
And
the
then,
whistleblowers, by the way?
so David Grush is the main whistleblower that's come out right now,
And they
but
worked for the government. Is that
he was one of the highest level intelligence officers in the U.S. government. Yeah, but we got to be, because he's a whistleblower off whistleblowers. He's only reporting on what whistleblowers told him. That's how they do it. They're really, like, really careful with the way they put this out. He's not technically a whistleblower. He's just whispering out what other people told him and provided him with information.
is there an intention you feel for releasing this information at this time?
Is there a what?
Intention behind releasing this information at this time?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So we'll get into that. So David Grush is the main guy coming out right now with info, but then we had, Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, who technically are positioned as whistleblowers, but I feel are part of an agenda. We have Tom DeLonge, who basically was the first one to come out and say, this is happening, here's all the people, this is what happened to USS Nimitz. But I think he was a part of an agenda that people call drip disclosure. But then the main whistleblowers are the ones that don't get any credit, right? Clifford Stone, he's the guy I interviewed. He was actually part of the UFO crash retrieval team, and he's been part of our community at conferences for years. Passed away a few years ago. When this came out, the UFO crash retrieval team, man, I was like, man, I wish Clifford was around because he would be like, finally, people can like, because a lot of people thought he's crazy, And so let's just get back to the history, and then we'll get to. So I'm going to tell you everything now that has been disclosed and accepted. And many people in Congress have believe it to be true. Many whistleblowers, high-level officials have said it. Most people in this community of UFO disclosure have been talking about it for a while. And then when I get to the point where I say this is happening the last 3 weeks, I'll let that be known so I can let you know what happened right now. Okay. So 1893, there is a crash in Aurora, Texas, and there is a newspaper article about a burial that were found in Aurora, Texas. Reason why this is valid, even though it's got nothing to do with government disclosure, is because this is the first documented UFO crash retrieval that the government has released. Okay, that people have been speculating about for a while, and they just validated. World War I happens, World War II happens. Mussolini, there's a UFO crash in Italy. Mussolini retrieves the UFO. Right, this has come out in the last 3 weeks. Okay, on mainstream news. Mussolini gets the UFO, and the U.S. government tends to take Mussolini down. And when they do, they take the UFO, and now they have the UFO in their possession. Okay, and now we have World War II going on, and all of a sudden we have what's called the Foo Fighters, like the band, where they even got the name from UFOs. Foo Fighters were the name for the UFO sightings that were happening during World War II, because both sides were both seeing UFOs everywhere. And at first they thought it was a weapon from the other side, but then both of them were seeing the same thing, and none of them were attacking the craft. They were just seeing them doing weird things in the sky. We have Foo Fighters. Very soon after this, we have the formation of the beginning of the CIA, but we also have the formation of Project Blue Book, which is been known around for a long time. It was declassified a while ago. Discovery Channel had a whole entire series on it, a reenactment series on it. Project Blue Book, J. Allen Hynek, in the 1950s. He went in, and the U.S. government brought him in order to discredit and to prove these UFO cases as not being real. He went in there, and instead, through his research, he realized it is real, and he became a believer. So much so that his son, Paul Hynek, speaks at Portals Ascension and other conferences now, right? So after this, during the same time, towards the end of Project Blue Book, we have the Condon University of Colorado Condon research, I think it's called, where they were studying in 1950s if these UFOs pose a threat. Their answer: there's no reason to suggest these UFOs pose a threat. Okay, they realized they're not a threat, and instead of continuing the research, they closed down the project. Project Blue Book and this project both closed down. But what we're realizing now through the disclosures having last 3 weeks, the black budget money, the fact that the Pentagon fails 8 audits and loses $1 trillion, including the day before 9/11, seems to be all of the money that's going to these projects after they close them down. They continue them. Okay, so now we have the ridiculing of UFOs and ETs for a while. Lights on, Green Man, all that kind of stuff happening, dissing the fact that anybody could be into UFOs and ETs. So that continues until fast forwarding up until 2016. A few other things happened in there. The disclosure movement with Stephen Greer in 2001, the Congress people with Steve Bassett in DC having hearings on UFOs, but not directly connected with the government. It was like ex-congressmen. It was like whistleblowers trying to get the government to say something, but complete radio silence, right? So now the ridiculing continues. However, from 2001 up until 2016, that's when we have the Grant Camerons, the Paula Harrises, the Linda Moulton Howes, myself, all these ufologists really just like really embodying this field, trying to release this stuff. 2016 occurs, and there's a rebranding that happens from UFOs to UAPs, right? Hillary Clinton goes on Jimmy Kimmel show. Jimmy goes, hey, I asked your husband about this, but I'm curious about your take. Are you going to release the Area 51 files and tell us the truth about UFOs? And first of all the late night talk show hosts have been hijacked by agenda-oriented people. And secondly, no presidential candidate or president goes on any of these programs without knowing every question they're going to be asked. So she goes, Jimmy, we don't call them UFOs anymore. We call them UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. Rebranding. WikiLeaks emails come out a couple of weeks later. UFOs all over those WikiLeaks emails, plus a lot of other corrupt stuff. So it kind of got lost in translation. But Grant Cameron came on our platform. We went through the emails together. And the WikiLeaks email says things like Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, Edgar Mitchell, Obama, emailing each other about talking about non-human intelligences in our solar system, right? So I'm like, what the heck's going on? A couple months later, Tom DeLonge comes out. WikiLeaks emails release a lot of stuff. Hillary Clinton tried to rebrand it so that it could be considered something serious and get votes from people that were into this stuff. And now we have Tom DeLonge coming out in response to all this stuff being leaked, plus all the work that the ufologists that were connected to, Greer and others, were doing to get behind it because they knew it was inevitable the truth that's coming out. But the truth that was coming out was the fact that these craft have been reverse engineered. That was the truth they didn't want to come out, because once they know that they've been lying to us for decades, the first UFO crash that they started reverse engineering, 1933, okay? October 1954, anti-gravity was perfected. October 1954. How much lies and how much corruption have they done? And so they had to get behind this, and they started saying, hey guys, we're all part of we're ex-government officials. We're looking in the sky. We saw these things. People have been reporting on them, but our soldiers didn't want to say anything about it because they didn't want to be considered crazy. But we're looking at it seriously now. What is this? What is this out there? It's not from a foreign adversary. What is it? Tom DeLonge comes out with that. I'm watching this, and when it's done, I'm like, why didn't they speak about aliens? Right? They're saying it's not a foreign adversary. They're saying it's breaking the laws of physics. Why aren't they talking about ETs? Drip disclosure continues. Technology-based, sightings. No one's talking about extraterrestrial life, right? And so every few months, just more and more information is coming out on the mainstream. Pre-2016, type in UFO disclosure in Google. Stephen Greer's site, Grant Cameron's site. I'm on page 20, And then after 2016, type in UFO disclosure on Google. 1,000 pages, CNN, MSNBC, The Sun, complete hijack. Well, how does SEO work? I was an SEO specialist. SEO works that if you had that keyword on your website for the longer than anybody else, you already get higher ranking as long as you're continuously adding new content with those keywords within it, right? How could all of these mainstream platforms take over the internet within one day with this topic? Also, at the same time, Google was caught actually doctoring search results, 2016, because the election was happening, right? And so it's all connected. So then information keeps coming out. What is this technology? 3 videos were circulated since 2016. The Nimitz incident, the gimbal incident, and the FILIR-1 incident, which all happen to be reverse engineered craft. What they were trying to do is say, we're seeing something in the sky. Maybe we can get some of this technology, find the technology, reverse engineer it, and then let the public know, wow, we just reverse engineered some sort of technology, instead of saying, hey, we've been lying to you since 1930 and we already had this technology for decades. They wanted to make it look like they're just doing it now because people will be really upset that they already had all this technology, right? So all that's happening. Now we're going to get into the last 3 weeks. So should I take a pause here? Do you want to jump in and say anything?
I'm just amazed at how your brain works and how much details you remember. Okay. Yeah.
So, okay, it's like 4 weeks ago, I guess now, all of a sudden, David Ghosh goes on News Nation. 7-hour interview that they're releasing in parts. And he goes that he's been working for the UAP task force. The UAP task force, a lot of these programs always continued. Technically, there was ATIP program, which actually went by a different name, that Lou Elizondo was a part of. that was researching UFOs, and that was the first thing that came out in 2016. $17 million went towards that, and now we have the UAP task force. So during COVID, at the end of the first COVID relief bill, the one that gave us the first stimulus checks, at the end of it, there was a page about UFOs. The whole thing was COVID, and then one page about UFOs, which started the UAP task force that the US government is now going to create and fund a department to look at UAPs, UFOs, and to see if there's any truth behind it. So this guy was assigned to that, right? And so he's in this task force, and then all of a sudden, as he's there, all these other whistleblowers that aren't a part of that program start coming up to him and saying, "Hey, we're part of programs," telling him lots and lots and lots of stuff. He's got documents, he's got classified documents, he's got schematics, all this stuff, all of which he handed over to Congress 4 weeks ago. And they're saying, we've been a part of a UFO crash retrieval program that's been going on for decades. And all these UFO crashes, Roswell was true, Mussolini was true, and we've had this technology, been reverse engineering it. And so he came out and said that the US government has been hiding for decades a UFO crash retrieval program. And they go, what does that mean? And he goes, we have craft of non-human intelligence. So the interviewer goes, are you saying that we have spaceships from non-human, that from a different species? Yes. Do you have any, were there any bodies? Well, he goes, well, just as you would imagine with UFOs that crash and UFOs that land, there were definitely bodies that were found. Next day, a bunch of other whistleblowers come out and they say that the US government has 12 crashed UFOs in possession. Okay, so this is all coming up back to back. So the question goes, he goes, why are you not calling them extraterrestrials? Why are you calling them? So the conversation finally went to who's driving these things, because even though it was reverse engineered craft and what it is, people go, oh, that's not ET, that's ours, it's reverse engineered. What does reverse engineered mean? That it was ETs, that they reverse engineered it. People are like, oh, the aliens don't exist because they're reverse engineered. Well, reverse engineered means reverse engineering alien technology. So he goes, why don't you say extraterrestrials? And he goes, well, the evidence suggests they're interdimensional. And so we call them non-human intelligences. And we've been in interaction with them for a long time. So fast forwarding a lot of information here. Well, now we have all these Congress people that have got these documents that are being mind blown and on podcasts, on mainstream podcasts. Like this one, like real like bro type podcast where they play like basketball and they talk about how much testosterone they have. You know? And they had a congressman on there from Wisconsin, and he's just a regular dude from Wisconsin that just got the documents, right? And he's saying that like all these other people are coming up and telling him about this stuff. And the bro guy goes, what do you think they are? And he goes, well, we think that they're either us from the future or they're really ancient civilizations that have been here for 1,000 years. And then somebody goes, tens of thousands of years? And then the other guy goes, no, probably millions. That's the conversation on the mainstream right now. One other show, they go like, okay, what did they say? They're talking about like, hey, what about the UFO crashes? What about the bodies? Do you have any information? She goes, well, I only reported on the crash. I don't know about the bodies. And then the host is trying to like skirt around saying aliens, and the other host completely broke character and said, you could say aliens, right? So like they can't even hold their facade up anymore because this stuff is so huge and so big. And this other mainstream platform, YouTube mainstream, okay, not CNN mainstream, because the reason why I'm thinking that this is even more legit is because the mainstream is not accepting the story. Because, go ahead.
It's so interesting as you're sharing. I mean, it's just no coincidence, of course. And I mean, you know about the precession of equinoxes, probably better than anyone, but we're arguably entering into the age of Aquarius, and we're seeing just this ramping up that it can no longer be denied.
Yeah, exactly. So the mainstream, like CNN, MSNBC, all this stuff, they didn't take on the story. And if you look at who took it on, they're all the mainstream YouTube platforms, right? Like The Hill, Breaking Points, Joe Rogan, Andrew Schultz, like Jimmy Dore. a lot of comedians became like journalists, right? So like they got like millions of viewers. So the middle ground, where most people are, where most of the rational people are in the world, that have the most views, like Joe Rogan's the biggest podcast in the world, they're the ones that are actually getting this out to the people. And so but some of them are like legitimate news shows on YouTube that also might be progressive or have their own agenda. And now they're starting to be like, what are these beings? Who are they? And where did they come from? And they're also saying, are you telling us that the government has been lying to us? So that's something that I don't think the government wanted. They wanted to drip it in a way that the mass public didn't get upset at the fact that they've been lying to us. The guy that interviewed David Ghosh came out and said that one of the whistleblowers told him that a really major aerospace company in the US, who are the major ones? Bigelow, Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works, three of the big ones, probably one of them, because they're the three biggest. McDonnell Douglas, those four encompass like 90% of the DoD, right? Are trying to divest a UFO that they have in their possession for decades because of what's happening right now. So they're trying to sell their technology. This is on News Nation, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to sell the technology because Congress just passed legislation a week ago after this came out saying that it is now illegal for any penny to go from taxpayers to go to any black budget programs. It's completely, if you don't know about it, they can't make it illegal. But now that they know about it, they've said if they find out that one penny is going to a black budget program on UFOs or UFO reverse retrieval, it's now illegal and you're going to face criminal charges. So the private aerospace company that has the technology is freaking out and trying to get rid of their technology that they've had for decades in case they're going to have to be held accountable for it.
Yeah. I mean, Neil, when you're sharing this, it's so interwoven and there's so much that intersects and
Yeah.
so many pieces to this, really. I mean, like my mind goes to what's being invested into space travel and, commercial use. And I'm sure there's quite a bit of knowledge there that's not, being disclosed as well. And so it's like, how do you integrate? There might be a phase where it's like we're being lied to. I haven't heard this information before, and now it's like, widely becoming disseminated, and people like you are sharing, this knowledge. And so I'm curious, like the beyond, because I want to bring it back to the beginning of this conversation, which you shared so beautifully about, being able to raise our frequency and connect with benevolent beings, connect with different, different bandwidths of consciousness. And so I'd love to kind of bring it full circle as we, close this episode out to the so what, to the integration piece of this and what you're excited about on the horizon.
So as I'm seeing all this, seeing these whistleblowers, and seeing people that are becoming the face of it, even though other people that are spiritual people, some may be more into the linear stuff, have been doing this for so long. I'm reflecting on a post-disclosure world where we have interaction with ETs, and I'm like, well, who are they going to engage and communicate with? Awareness. A lot of them are focusing on technology and the weapons, or is it going to be with the people that are at the level of consciousness that they can meet? Around, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, the Israeli space chief, the guy that was the founder of the Israeli space program, came out and said the galactic federations exist. This is also came in the mainstream. The founder of the Israeli space program came and said the galactic federation exists and they're out there, but they think we're not at the level that they need us to be in order to communicate with us. They're here now, but we're not ready for them, right? And his own peers validated him, government officials in Israel, right? So even they know that it's about consciousness and connecting on this level. If you are coming from a reactory kind of triggered experience and warmongering experience, the communication with ETs and their message is going to pass right through you, right? So that was why it gets to the inner work. That's why it goes back to the story about like what does UFOs have to do with meditation? That without us, we have the full range of frequencies of emotion on this planet. Many other realities and dimensions don't. Especially when you're in higher dimensions, you tend to vibrate at those higher frequencies. So us having these experiences are beautiful in itself because we get to process so much emotions, traumas of the whole galaxy. But we also come from a place that we can be so reactory and so agenda oriented and manipulatable in certain frequencies that we are a threat to the harmony of the universe. So we need to do the work to get to a place of stillness within ourselves, to the own zero point, actually understand who we are and how we're connected to everything, and we're not so divided, so that we can start going out and interacting with these beings and usher in a whole new era of trade, communications, and not just trade with objects and technology, but trade with information. You know, um, the past of humanity, trade with information of how we can avoid cataclysms that keep resetting Earth, which happens every 13,000 years, So the potential for what is happening right now is us to move out of the cycle of a devolution to evolution, but to continue in evolution. So as I like to say, we eventually become the extraterrestrials to other worlds.
I love that. It's so beautiful. And I love how you shared recently in your community this shift of like so much of, excitement around extraterrestrials. And then you even surveyed recently, and there was, even more emphasis around like healing the inner work. And I feel like that's so powerful because it's like, we know this information. Okay, what now what? Like, and just to your point in sharing, it's to create a new era of consciousness.
Yes,
Neil,
exactly.
where can people go to learn more about you, Portal to Ascension, the retreats, and all the beautiful offerings that you have and share?
Mhm. So the best place is portaltoascension.org, and if you sign up to a newsletter, you get access to our website with a couple thousand hours of presentations categorized for you, because we have thousands of hours of presentations, but there's a couple thousand that are free. So you can sign up, you get access to that. And if you want to follow like our information that's coming out all the time, daily broadcasts, you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/portal to ascension, and check that out there, especially what's going on right now with the UFO stuff. We shift with the themes of the moment. So right now, there's a lot of information coming out of UFOs. So we're focusing on releasing a lot of content that prove what's happening right now. And then on July 22nd, we're going to be doing a free UFO Disclosure conference on our YouTube as well, where we're going to be talking about the real stuff, what's happening, but then always shifting it to what that means about our consciousness.
I love that. What would you like to share? Any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with listeners today?
I would say that it's inevitable. Like if you look at the cycles of time, ancient prophecies, that we're in a time of a great awakening, but we're also a time where prophecies that have been said about this end of one cycle and beginning of another one are actually coming to fruition. And this isn't just metaphysical new age information. This is scientific evidence. Even the position of our solar system is backing that there's a frequency shift within our own solar system happening on every planet. The rabbit hole goes so deep. Who we are and what we are, we spoke about being vibratory beings. We're fractals of light, scientifically speaking. That to feel that we know what we are when there's so much more out there that we know exists, but we can't even fathom what it really means to us, right? Is just limiting ourselves. The more we expand ourselves to the awareness that we don't even know what we could be, and we have infinite potential, and we could rewrite the code that we're within. We're what I like to say is like we're actors on a stage that forgot we're acting. Okay. And but we also forgot that we're the director. So what's happening now is we're realizing we're acting so we can co-create in a more conscious, intentional way. And we're realizing we're the director that can change the script as we're going along. So as we do that, we can recode this reality to work for all of us. We can have a much better experience on Earth. Yeah.
I love that. I love you. I love all
Thank
the,
you.
just so grateful for this conversation, for you coming on and sharing your knowledge and wisdom from the heart. And we'll have to have you back again another time. It's always so fun, so activating, and inspiring to connect with you. So, Neil, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you so much. My pleasure.